Call this meeting to order, Planning and Zoning at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Fire evacuation announcement. In case there's a fire, there are two ways to exit chambers. Right behind you, out through the doors right behind you, or out through these ones and down the stairs to the outside. And please, if there is an emergency, please walk away from as far as the building as you possibly can. Thank you. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Lou Fiore.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Francis Alimo.
Here.
Kiran Majmudar.
Here.
Kenneth Helinski.
Here.
Vinnie Gorillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
He's absent.
And Nicholas Lefakis.
Here.
Thank you. Let the record show that all the permanent members are here and then two alternates are in attendance. The minutes of April 28th. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of April 28th?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Chairman Higley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman DeGray. Is there any discussion on the minutes of April, regular meeting of April 28th? Mr. Lefakis? Commissioner Lefakis?
Page 9, at the end of the first paragraph, it refers to me, it says, Commissioner.
It says Commissioner Lefakis stated he is in total agreement about this issue. It's not clear, I think, whether I'm agreeing with the proposal or with what Commissioners DeGray and Higley were saying. So I'd like it to be a little more clear that with what has been said by Commissioners DeGray and Higley. Page 9 at the top.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that last sentence?
Yeah.
6 lines down, it says, Commissioner Lefakis stated he is in total agreement about this issue, but I'd like it to say, about this issue with what has been said by Commissioners DeGray and Higley.
So basically, you wanted to read, Commissioner Lefakis stated that he's in total agreement about this issue with what has been stated by both Commissioner Higley and Commissioner DeGray.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there a motion made to amend the minutes accordingly? Motion made by
Second.
Commissioner Helinski, seconded by Commissioner Higley, to accept the minutes as amended with that statement. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That shows unanimous to accept the minutes as amended. I'd also like to now wish someone would propose a motion that we take the following out of order. Before we go on to the town attorney report, I'd like to have new business 9A, the CIP review by the town manager, and then also move up old business, the referral on Pearl Street of the Pocket Park after that. Is there a motion made to change the agenda accordingly?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Higley.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner DeGray to take those two items out of order, to do that before the town attorney report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It showed it was unanimous to change our agenda accordingly. So with that, we now will have the town manager who just stepped out.
Okay.
I don't know where she went.
Oh, well.
Run up to her office.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take a short 3-minute recess. Good evening, Madam Town Manager.
Good evening. Apologize for the delay. I just looked up and counted the commission and realized I was a few copies short.
Sorry.
It is my pleasure to be presenting to you tonight per regulations, the proposed Community Capital Improvement Plan. That's part of our proposed budget. So this may be a little different than what you've seen in the past, but in terms of this year's capital improvement budget, it was both very challenging and strategic in terms of what we were trying to accomplish. So what I have before you is a couple of different sheets that I'll just identify quickly, and then I can highlight the capital improvement. But for the edification of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I did include a cover sheet that looks like this. It's a summary sheet. And in it, it denotes a lot of the revenue that we're looking at, as well as some expenditure changes that were part of our conversation. But I thought what would be of most interest to the Planning and Zoning Commission, especially as you see applications and they're coming forward, especially business activity, as we're looking to grow the grand list. Over on the right, it's showing the proposed budget and then the council adjustments to date through last night, the Board of Ed budget, where we are with that, and then our total budget. So the original proposed mill rate going into last night was 30.49. We have now taken that down to 27.89. So there was some significant activity that occurred last night, and that's some of what I'm going to just quickly go over today. When you look at your Excel spreadsheet that details all of the projects, and I know some of you have seen this before, but it shows you, because this is the 5-year plan, and so we're always planning. The shaded box that appears in the middle of the page is what we are proposing for this year, but we're also showing the out years because obviously this is a very robust budget. You will also see some yellow highlights, and so we have highlighted when we are using other sources. And many of you are aware that we've received $13 million through the American Rescue Plan Act. We have applied those funds very judiciously and very strategically in order to finish as many projects as we can. As you well know, we have a revenue cap. So last year the number was any project more than $689,000 had to go to referendum. Luckily, due to the growth in the grand list, the number for July 1st moving forward will be $827,000. So that is a healthy increase. But what we did here was simply indicate where the projects are, which ones we're doing, and how they're being funded. So I thought it would be interesting for you to see where those ARPA funds are being applied. And if there's a different source, that will be noted as well. So on page 2, for example, Enfield Street School, we have a sprinkler system issue there where it's not holding pressure. So we are funding that project with ARPA because it is a life safety issue. Moving down, Hazardville Memorial School, the roof, that reimbursement piece is going to be finished off there. We're also starting the very large project of designing the window replacements. For those of you familiar with that school, it's a lot of windows, and some of them are starting to deteriorate at a rapid rate. So we've identified that project. We're also looking at utilizing the Board of Education's new status as an Alliance District. When you're an Alliance District, you are allowed into an exclusive pool of revenue that the state provides that allows you to do a greater flexibility of projects than other school districts have, and that's only allowed for Alliance Districts. So you can do play areas, playgrounds, boilers, roofs, a lot of different things. So we're also looking to leverage those funds as well. To the next page, we are doing some existing lighting at Brainerd Field needs to be replaced. And in some cases, those ballasts are so out of date that we're cannibalizing from other light poles throughout town. So we're putting in new lighting there. At Elkhorn, we have a proposed project for the phase 2 of the steam piping replacement project, which is another critical piece there with so many new programs happening at Elkhorn. We have removed, due to mill rate impact, we're putting on hold some of the annex projects. So if you look over into the shaded area, you will see that those have been zeroed out. Those are some of the council adjustments that I referenced. Those projects are not critical yet, so in the interest of maintaining a good tax rate in lieu of the revaluation impact, we have taken out some of those projects. The next page, we are doing some roof replacements at the DPW garage, the salt shed roof replacement. Try to say that 3 times fast. That is also has some issues, and the last thing you need is for your salt to get wet. So that's kind of a critical project. We have some generator and power transfer switch programs that we're doing. And then another interesting use of funds, if you look down that last piece, the B&G Equipment Storage Building, we are trying to relocate building and grounds off of Prospect Street to the annex, which would require a Butler building or some type of structure there. But that was also not something that everyone felt strongly about in terms of if it hit the mill rate, because it's a project that is not critical to service needs. However, we identified that there was train platform funds that were allocated 3 years ago. And per charter, if you have something that is appropriated and encumbered but not spent over 3 years, you have to return it to the general fund. So we have taken those funds and reallocated them to the building and grounds equipment storage building. The sooner we can get them out of Prospect Street, we can repurpose that and hopefully get it back on the tax rolls. Again, just as an example, you'll see the Pearl Street Library egress elevator has been zeroed out. Library staff decided that that was not a need that they needed, and they needed other things instead. We did keep in the town hall exterior paint and millwork. If you look up when you leave your meeting tonight, the cupola as well as a lot of the upper reaches of this building are starting to deteriorate. This is your municipal seat of government. If you're asking other people to have a property maintenance standard, it's good that you enforce it on your own buildings. So that is a project that we are looking to do with ARPA funds as well as the gutter relining. And again, not a really interesting project, but there's so many holes within the seams. We actually had someone slip and fall outside, and we all know what happens when that happens. So we are looking to reduce the town's risk and liability in terms of some of these projects as well. So that was identified as an ARPA project as well.
The bathrooms, does that get stricken out or just forget to get highlighted?
The highlights I should have mentioned are also things that either changed or had a funding source changed. Town hall is still in, even though it's not highlighted. Anything that is in that column is being proposed. With the meeting last night, we're still working off of these sheets. So, moving down, you will see that the some accessories and the camera truck within the water pollution control that they use every day now appear as a zero. That's because we were able to fund it in a different way through the operating budget. One of the challenges we have here in Enfield is the fact that our salaries in a lot of cases are not competitive, so it's very difficult, especially in certified positions for operators, operator 4s, operator 3s. So we have a attrition rate that we were able to allocate some of that surplus salary in order to buy that, to keep it off of the mill rate as well. So some of these other projects, you will see some typical equipment that we try to keep on a vehicle replacement schedule so that we don't have safety issues or trucks in disrepair. Public Works has a very wide breadth of responsibilities across several divisions. Moving on to the next page, I did want to highlight, even though it's not highlighted, the freshwater pond forebay dredging and the land services. As you probably know, that this is something that's required of us every 5 years. So we put money aside over the course of those years so that when we're ready to go out, we're able to do that. That project is due to be done next year. So there's, some of this Orlando Drive culvert replacement. That's a reimbursement project, so we are reflecting that. That's ongoing right now. Our LoCIP money that we get from the state is our contribution to roads 2021, so you'll see that there. The South River Street Bridge, which has gotten a lot of attention lately, that project is about ready to go live, and that's our contribution to that. We did take out the Civil War Monument relocation, so probably in the next few months, and I know we're going to talk about this on the agenda later, you're going to see what the Town Council will be pushing forward as the preferred redevelopment plan for the LeStrand and Lamagna site location. The preferred developer that we are thinking that we would like to work with is really incorporating the statue as part of a little bit of a pocket park in what is potentially going to be built there. We're very excited about the design, and so hopefully in the next few months you'll be seeing that as a site plan. But for right now, and due to the costs as well as the interest of the preferred developer, he's going to stay right where he is. for now. We are looking to pick up a bulky waste compactor. And I note this one, again, only because it's interesting for people to understand. It sounds like it's just something that's going to be at the transfer station, crushing into those bins as people bring trash and large items there. But what it actually does is it saves the town a significant amount of money, because when you compact within those bins, you have to haul them off-site less frequently. You don't have those big air pockets and wasted space within your bins, your roll-off bins. So if you can compact it, you can keep them on site longer and save those costs of transporting them to the final facility. A bunch of trucks are due, so you'll see that reflected. Some of them are ARPA, and some of them are going to be just out of our general fund. And the last page, there's only a couple of things that remain, and they are some of our upgrading of our athletic facilities for softball at Brainerd and for baseball at Powder Hollow, both big facilities. And also our dispatch system, which is used by everybody. We were told by one of the sales reps that if any of our pieces continue to break down over the course of the next year, he's probably going to be looking for parts on eBay, which is not really anything that brings a big sense of comfort to people for emergency response. So that is really necessary. And the power source here at Town Hall, very important, about to be upgraded. And the last item is Senior Center. Their AV and movie equipment is now unable to be used. So we're making sure that's such a big part of their programming that we're going to make sure that that gets taken care of for July 1st as well. So it's a very big list. And if you look, we are up to about $7 million in CIP. We have actually reduced this number, I think, today. Down, that's hitting the mill rate, is the bottom number. Right here, it's shown as 3.5, but I believe after a couple of meetings today, we're down to about 2.2. The numbers may be shifting based on funding sources. The projects as presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight are the same. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all that input. Brings back a lot of memories. I'm sure myself and Commissioner Helinski and LaFakis, we've been through this before, so thank you again. Any questions for the town manager on their proposed CIP budget for the next coming fiscal year?
I thought it was very thorough. Thank you.
Commissioner Limo?
Yes, thank you for the report. On the dredging of the pond, does our responsibility go upstream east at all into that stream or channel that feeds it? We've had problems, for 40 years over there. And I know Lori had said something, there's maybe another project going on. We talked about, remember I said about the culvert? I believe the problem is the culvert under 91, when they widened it, it's not large enough. And that's why we get back up east of the bridge, east of the highway, and then we get west of it. So anyway, is that our jurisdiction?
I do believe that the Army Corps of Engineers has jurisdiction over the entire piece of it, and I will defer to Lori, but I'm being relatively new. I do believe I saw project photos recently was that the culvert, or was that another portion of the water course?
I'm not exactly sure what you saw, but there has been a study all along the freshwater brook corridor, and they're going to be coming up with guidelines for possible improvements and measures to minimize flooding in the near future. Some of it will be like, okay, yeah, you should probably replace that culvert under 91, which I'm sure will happen next year.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a heavy lift because it involves the state and federal government. I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, but they're talking about berming and dams and dikes and things of that nature throughout the watershed.
Yeah.
So.
Good. So the dredging is the pond itself.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Which we've done before a few times.
Yeah, it's been dredged,
absolutely.
but that
Yep.
brook has been a problem.
Yes, it's been a problem
years,
since
forever, since I can remember.
we were kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this particular item with the town manager? Thank you. Thank you again for coming and give us all that detail, and we do appreciate that, being kept up to date on that. Thank you. So now I guess we can move on to, unless you have more on that issue?
Nope. Do we need to do the Section 8-24 while I'm here?
Yeah, I guess we do. We don't really have anything so in paper on that, I don't believe. Oh, we do?
I think I did a memo
Yeah,
for the
you
last
did.
meeting.
Yep.
You did already move this item up to the beginning
Yes.
of the agenda.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see for the 824 so the secretary can read it. Do you have something, John, on that?
Last
If
thing.
you had your iPad.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Here you go, John.
Okay, well, bad.
That was a well-deserved dig. Thank you.
We were all bad.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Okay.
He's,
to John. It's,
Oh, is that,
no, that's not this one.
is that on the public hearing?
yeah, flip it,
Right.
Second page.
Second page.
Second page of what he did.
Do you want Ellen to talk while you're?
There you go.
There we go. We have it.
Okay, we're all set.
Okay, so I'm going to read this in.
Yep.
Okay. Enfield Town Council Resolution Number 8-24, resolution referring proposed town park to the Planning and Zoning Commission, whereas the Pearl Street, North Main Street Bridge crosses over Freshwater Brook, and whereas the western portion of the bridge consists of a sidewalk and an unpaved grass-covered area shown at the top of the map as provided, and whereas the town council desires to designate the above-noted area as a town park, and whereas the town council must refer the proposed to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a report in conformance with the requirements of the Connecticut General Statute 8-24. Now therefore be resolved that the proposed designated park described above be referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission in conformance with required Connecticut General Statutes 8-24. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
But I think we haven't had the discussion yet, if you don't mind. So we just read that. So
Oh, I'm
basically,
sorry.
that's okay.
Oh,
So
we're continuing.
basically, I think the town manager's here to give us a little more presentation on this particular issue. Yes.
So this started because we have a lot of moving pieces in Thompsonville right now, one of them being the redevelopment of Strand and Lamagna. The soldier for Civil War sits in the middle of that redevelopment site. The little spur that comes out of that piece of property is actually part of that site, it is not a separate piece of land. So there was some concern that we were going to be ceding over a very significant statue to a private owner, where it should stay with under municipal control for maintenance, et cetera. So that spurred a bunch of conversations with the town council, with departments, as well as the Veterans Council, who all liked the idea that had been brought forward by the Enfield Police Department to relocate it, if it had to be relocated, to this portion that you had read into the record. Because Freshwater Pond is designated as a park, the police department has additional authority for citations and park ordinances that they can enforce. They don't have that authority on this little piece across from Corona's, which they would like to incorporate. That would give them some added opportunities to have conversations with people who are loitering, who may be drinking publicly, who may be engaged in other types of activities that aren't appropriate for the business district. Excuse me, so that they can move them along and clean up that area. So at this point, we are not relocating the statue, but we are still interested in designating that as a park. As you know, with the train platform coming probably in the next 18 months to 2 years, that's going to be a major thoroughfare. So we're looking to dress up some of that. And we have development happening on the other side of the community gardens with Ronnie Salas, and on the other side with the community health building. Now we have Strand Lamagna. We have Mr. Talarita across the street looking to do some things. And we're also in conversations excuse me, about the Old Country Store. So it's time. And for those of you who may have been in Thompsonville over the course of the last couple of days, finally after 10 years, 11 Thompson Court was demolished yesterday. That's the building that had fallen in on itself a couple of times. So again, trying to connect a lot of these dots, trying to make it aesthetically pleasing and also attractive to people who may want to develop there.
Thank you. You need to take a recess so you get some water?
I think I'm done, in case
anybody
has any questions.
There probably is. Yes, that's why I'm saying. Yeah, okay. The first thing I'd like to do, if I can, as chairman, because Commissioner D'Antonio was not here tonight, I'm not sure now's the appropriate time or not, or I should just wait. I think I'd like to read something into the record that he sent via email, just so we have in the record. This is from Commissioner D'Antonio. Quote, "I do support the referral to create the pocket park, but I am strongly against a proposal from the email chain printout from last meeting to remove the grass and replace it with stones. An obvious concern is the creation of a park with less green space than it had prior. But just as concerning is the intent to do so expressively to punish homeless residents. This is called hostile architecture, and we should minimally seek to avoid this outcome where possible on public lands, especially parks, and we should most certainly should not be actively seeking it." I promised Commissioner D'Antonio that I would read that in the record so that, his comments would be here since he couldn't be here with us tonight. So having said that, the town manager is here, and any questions about the pocket park? Commissioner DeGray?
Okay, this and I guess I'm not quite clear, because having been on the Revite for Thompsonville years ago, which is now dissolved, that whole area was going to be a green space, basically, and I thought it was designated as a park. And I don't understand why the police cannot move someone along if they're drinking in public. I guess I'm a little confused on that part. And then why remove the statue from where it is and put it in a place that's been, in the past, flooded, where it can float right down Connecticut River? Why not move it up to where all of our other monuments are? Because it's not just Civil War, it's also World War I. And people keep saying Civil War, but it's 2 wars. So it really does need a very prominent place, like on Enfield Street, not down further along the way. And people keep saying, oh, well, the train station. We've been waiting for the train station for 50 years. Hasn't happened yet, so sorry. I'm not buying that part. I'd rather see it, if you're gonna move it up here to a prominent place. We have Higgins Park, you could put it there, put it with the rest of the monuments. Don't move it to a place where it could be damaged by vandals if you're having an issue already down there. That's my concern.
So the good news is, at this point, there's a pretty high level of confidence with the people that we talked to this afternoon that if they're chosen to pursue that redevelopment, that there is going to be a very nice home for that statue that will be a centerpiece of their outside space. So the movement of the statue is now not part of this conversation. The designation of that little portion of grassy area that is adjacent to the bridge abutment and the community gardens is not designated as a park. So I think we need to address a couple of things. So the police obviously approach community policing and quality of life issues in a very serious way. So I appreciate the comments about hostile landscaping, but again, they're thinking with their enforcement hat on. And they brought that idea to us because they've been charged by the chief to bring solutions, not just to go down there and have a presence and have their arms crossed looking at people. They're supposed to engage. They're supposed to think about how to solve problems. We receive a significant amount of complaints from businesses in that area, as well as residents, about loitering, illicit activity, all the things that go on with a high-dense neighborhood. So they came up with a solution. The fact that they proposed stones, not grass, and kind of this, well, people won't be able to lay down, they won't be able to, lounge around kind of thing, that's the police mentality. It's not one that was really espoused by us or one that we agreed to. But we agreed to the fact that if we could give them another tool in their toolbox in terms of enforcement, and citations are lower than arrests. We're not looking to arrest the homeless. We're looking to connect them with services. We have a partnership now with the Department of Social Services and the police department. They work together. There's now an embedded social worker. She goes out with the police officer. She's in Thompsonville a lot, and she's doing referrals. So that's the approach from a community policing standpoint. But that little area, especially in warm weather, is a problem. It's a gathering spot. So being able to use additional tools, either $40 tickets or the threat of such, moving people along that they don't have without approaching a higher level. They thought it was what would be effective for them. They can do that around the pond, which is park. I can look into the green space area, but it's not, that piece is not designated right now as a park. And that's what we need to do as a town council in order to give them citation powers for park ordinances specifically.
And just one more thing.
Sure.
If they're concerned about people loitering and sitting on the wall, just put some bayberry bushes. Trust me. I got one you can have. Come get it. It's not friendly.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, why not just plant some rose bushes in the area and put another light in and.
Rose bushes were mentioned, refurbishment of the flagpole was mentioned, and some type of landscaping. But there's pending referrals and approvals. There's been nothing that has been designed, so to speak.
Commissioner Higley?
I noticed in your presentation you talked about the statue will have a prominent position in the new design. If that's private property, don't we lose control for the statue if they do that?
And that was one of my primary concerns.
Okay.
That and it's also a contributing structure within the Thompsonville Historic District, so it made me uncomfortable. Again, today, and the planner will probably agree with me, today was kind of like a first date, so they tend to usually go well when you're trying to make a good impression. But I did have, based on their work product and some of their other projects, I feel confident that we're going to continue to have a conversation with this group. And based on their preliminary design, which is, again, is just a picture, they placed it in such a way that right now I'm comfortable with it staying there and us probably having a very good relationship with them so that if we noticed any tarnishment or any type of deterioration, that there would be some communication between us that we could make sure that that was ameliorated.
Commissioner Petronella?
Yes, with respect to the Civil War monument, I just want to say that that's off the table in this resolution.
Correct.
That was
Correct.
deleted, so I just want to make it clear that it was
Yep.
crossed off.
Yep.
So right now, it's staying where it is.
Yep.
And I just wanted to make that comment because Commissioner DeGray had said something about it. With respect to Commissioner D'Antonio's comments with the stone, I tend to agree with him for even other reasons, but stones are going to get put down there, and they're going to get picked up by kids or adults. They're going to get thrown into the freshwater brook down below, or they're going to get thrown at, cars, windows, whatever it might be, but I'm a little bit against that. I think grass or some creative landscaping would be far better, but and I understand where the police department's coming from too as well, because grass is inviting for them to sleep or bed down or whatever they do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lefakis?
Yes, just for disclosure to the rest of the commission, I wrote to all of the town council people, the town manager, Lori, and chief of police, and I spoke against, or I wrote against moving the statue. And a couple of things I cited was the flooding that occurred in that area, and there are plenty of pictures to that effect. And I also mentioned that the statue was likely placed there because at that time the town hall was there, and the building next to it was Enfield High, which became an elementary school, which then became a police station. So that was pretty much the center of government. So the statue could be placed in an area where the center of government exists for the town today. And then as far as the statue, if the statue stays there, we have subdivided lots of property over the years as a commission. So that property can be subdivided and we can retain that portion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Going forward with the statue,
Yes.
which is really not, kind of for discussion tonight. Anybody else? Commissioner Limo?
Yeah, relative to what you've seen today and you go forward with that project, is it possible to get a memorandum of understanding, or can we do a condition of approval, maybe, so they maintain?
Well, we're not,
That statute.
again, we're not discussing the statute tonight. That's not, tonight is strictly
Oh,
about
she
the
was
pocket
just
park.
she bringing it up. We just talked about it.
But we're not doing the statute tonight.
We're not.
That's off the table, that's scratched off. We're talking about the pocket park only. The statute is staying where it is as of
Right.
today.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. If it stays there, can we do a memorandum of understanding with the new owners so it's maintained, or?
I think that, my goal in coming here tonight was to give you a broad brush look at what's happening so that you understood how we rapidly asked you for one thing and are now pulling it back because there's other pieces. I will also say, in addition to the development that the planner and I were looking at today with other members of the administration, this is a very hot topic. So we had some veterans who absolutely wanted it moved. We had some that wanted it brought to town hall. We had longstanding members of the Thompsonville community that over their dead bodies is something else going to be lost from Thompsonville. So, it was one of those things like you're kind of sorry you brought it up after, So in the scope of everything, I did want to be very transparent with the Planning and Zoning Commission to let you know that hopefully sooner rather than later, you are going to see something in front of you that is going to probably incorporate, at least in the beginning stages, the statute. What we do with it as a town, or what you do with it in terms of site plan for conditions, et cetera, all of that is a blank slate right now. And I know that everybody cares greatly about both the historic as well as the military heritage here in town, and I have no qualms that something will be done correctly. But again, it was really just in the scope of this is why we're here again talking about this in a different way, because we have some other options now.
Thank you.
Okay, the only question I have is really for staff. If we grant or approve the referral for the pocket park, and I'm not implying this would happen, but I'm just thinking ahead, having been around the block a few times, would the town then be able to move the statue there without our referral, since it's already a park?
I would suggest that if you don't want the statute to be part of this referral, that you make that clear, that this is not including the moving of the statue. And if you wanted to recommend, some sort of, grass or creative landscaping versus stone, you could also put that in as recommendations.
Okay, but just theoretically, I mean, could the town go ahead if we made it a pocket park and then move this? No, I'm not implying that you would.
I don't think that the pocket park has any relevance,
Okay.
really. It's like
Okay.
if they're going to move the statue, they're going to have to do something. There's got to be some process.
Okay.
And
So-
find $100,000
And
to
find
do
the money
so.
to do it,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Is there any other questions, concerns? Okay, seeing that, we don't have to, was not a public hearing, so basically we'll just take a motion to approve. Is there any caveat you want to put to this referral? Basically, the referral states, so we want to also mention that this does not include the issue concerning the statue?
And do we want to mention suggesting grass or creative landscaping instead of stones?
Yes. That seems to be appropriate. I think everyone-
If I may make a suggestion with that, maybe we just make a referral that any improvements done to the park would have to be brought back before this commission? Is that,
Yeah.
would that be appropriate?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because that would also include the statue.
Sure.
That would be an improvement, or the landscaping.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Excellent.
Very good. Nice idea, Commissioner Petronella.
Well, with that, I'll
Please.
make a motion to send a positive 8-24 referral to create a new pocket park at the westerly intersection of Pearl, North Main Street, and Main Street, with the following condition, that the town apply for any proposed improvements that may be done to that pocket park in the future.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Higley. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please, Mr. Secretary.
Lou Fiore,
4.
Virginia Higley,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Francis Alimo,
4.
Kiran Majmudar,
4.
Kenneth Helinski,
4.
John Petronella is 4.
Thank you. Seeing that there was a unanimous referral to the council with a couple of minor stipulations. So again, thank you, and thank you for spending the time with us tonight. And
Yep. Thank you for your time, and when the budget is approved for the purposes of the record, I will probably forward to Planning and Zoning the final CIP, because right now, there's already been changes based on the timing of us appearing before you, and then the budget adoption on Monday.
thank you. Matt, you looked concerned. You had a concerned look on your face. Is everything all set? Okay, thank you. Okay, big town attorney report. Town attorney's not here tonight, but I know we all received a little something in our packet outlining where they were with some particular cases. Seeing that, we're going to be moving on to public participation. At this point in the meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions related to planning and zoning in Enfield from anyone who is present, provided that no one may discuss any matter of business at this time that is already elsewhere on the agenda, any matter that is part of an open public hearing of the commission, or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending, and that also includes any type of legality pending issues. Seeing that, if anyone, please feel free to come on up and address us. Please make sure the mic is on and identify yourself for the record, please.
Kelly Himmler, 10 Hartford Avenue. It's my understanding that we're not allowed to speak at the public hearings XZA number 3040 for a proposed text change. At the last meeting, the public did not have the opportunity
Yeah,
to
Ms. Himmler,
speak.
that's something else already on the agenda.
Okay, are we going to be able to speak at
We
it?
haven't decided that yet. We haven't decided that yet.
Well, then you can't have it both ways. So either I can talk now or I can talk
Can't
later.
talk about something else that's already on the agenda, and that's on our agenda.
So you're saying we can talk about it?
We haven't decided that yet.
You can't have it both ways.
I already mentioned the.
So what are you afraid of? You just let us speak? I know you're going to speak the way,
Ms.
you're
Himmler,
going
I-
to decide the way you want
I will
anyways.
take a recess until you are done. You cannot talk about that. It's already on our agenda. Maybe we'll let you speak, and maybe we won't. We haven't decided yet.
Oh.
We're not going to do this.
So you're saying you're a generous God. Okay, I get it.
Anyone else? Come on up. Is that mic on?
It is now.
Thank you.
Matt Schmidt, 1304 Bigelow Commons. I just want to remark about the pocket parks. I think it's actually a great idea, and I understand, the police needing that. So I think maybe we can expand on that. I was thinking maybe another pocket park in that area or two. Maybe we could start about 100 feet away from like St. Patrick's Church, and maybe go 100 feet from there on out, all the way down Pearl. What that'll do is it'll allow the police to really be able to patrol that area very well. There's some other benefits to that too, I believe, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Lori Parker, 105 Cottage. I just wanted to say thank you for letting the public attend the POCD meeting. It was very informative. I'd like to attend more. And really just wanted to reiterate, would like to see a moratorium. Maybe South Windsor has done it, and maybe look at 2 years or longer. I also see that Windsor is requiring public hearing, they're considering requiring public hearings for site plan reviews now, making that a requirement for large warehouses, and just some more stuff to consider. And on 113 North Maple Street, I just wanted to mention, of course, the wind has not stopped blowing for the last month, and the sand has been terrible there. And maybe look at some enforcing the landscaping rules there. And I don't see that the grass has been being planted or anything like that. So I don't know if that would help, but it doesn't look like the wind's going away. And lastly, and following up on the ARPA, it would be nice if some of that could go towards open space or preservation. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Sir?
Dean Gauss, 151 Spring Street.
Could you just pull the mic a little closer to you?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
In reference to the pocket park and it would be great to think about that a lot more. As far as, I don't remember what terminology he used, but about the stones, about the aggressive landscaping, those things are all easily torn down. So it's really something, and there's a lot of things about these conversations that we really need to think about and take a little more time to make some decisions, because the people that are down there have no respect, and whatever they put there, they're going to try and figure out a way through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Liz Warner, 74 West Shore. Will we be able to speak during the discussion about the warehouse?
No, that's a discussion among ourselves, but I do recommend you stay. You won't be able to participate, no.
Can I say something regarding warehouses at this moment?
I believe you probably can, so this item for discussion. It's not really a legality item that's on our agenda. It's a planning and zoning discussion, so I would think you can.
I see, thank you.
I had to think about that for a second.
Okay, I appreciate that. I want to thank you all for coming out on this beautiful evening. You really dedicate a lot of your time and energy to this community. I appreciate that. I also enjoyed the POCD meeting. I would hope that we'll have more of those community-type meetings. I see you have a lot of plans for Thompsonville going on, but I see there's a disconnect with the community, and I'd love to see maybe something like that with Thompsonville leaders, residents, not just people that are planning to develop there. In regards to the warehouse, I think most people just don't realize how big these things are until they're actually in your neighborhood. And of course, all the things that come along with that. I'd love to see a required public meeting for any warehouse of any substantial size that was next to a residential area, in the wetlands, or affecting the wetlands, or would impact our prime farmland. That's our history here. We are a farming community, right back from Shaker's times and probably before that with the Native Americans. And I really hate to see that be lost. We've got a lot of great history here in Enfield, and I see you're doing great things to improve the town. I just would love, I know you're busy, I know you've got a lot, but to get the community involvement is really key. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, declare public participation closed. New public hearings. PH 3024 Elm Street. The applicant is not ready tonight, so I would entertain a motion to table this until May 26th.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Higley, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Helinski to table PH 3024 until May 26th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Let the record show that was unanimous for that table. On PH 3036, 33 Palumba Drive, again, we have the applicant who is unable to attend tonight. I would entertain a motion that we table that until the May 26th meeting.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner DeGray, seconded by Commissioner Higley to table this until May 26th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Seeing that, it was unanimous to table PH 3036. We're going to keep on going here. PH 3038, 370 North Maple Street. Again, the applicant was unable to attend tonight. They're requesting that we table this until May 26th meeting. Entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Motion made by
Second.
Commissioner Helinski, seconded by Commissioner Higley to table this until the May 26th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we're going to go on to item D, which didn't get tabled. Hey. Just give me a second here to find my place in my, Mr. Secretary, if you could open this hearing.
Yes, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings in their regular meeting on Thursday, May 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. PH 3040 ZA zoning text amendment for additional outdoor storage in any industrial zone up to 50% of the rear and side yards, subject to buffers, screening, and other design standards. Connecticut Mulch Distributors, Inc., applicant.
Thank you. Is the applicant's team and a representative here? Please come forward, identify yourself for the record. And make sure the mic is on. You might, now you know the routine. Just pull it closer to you.
I'm sorry?
You know the routine. You've been
I
here
do,
before.
yeah. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Before I start, and I'm Rob Fry. I'm representing Connecticut Organics on Mullen Road. Before I start, I would like to ask that the narrative statement that was originally submitted back in December for this text amendment be added to the record for tonight's meeting, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Should I?
Yeah, just brief, just for the record, just so, yeah.
There's not a whole lot I'd like to say. We've gone through this. I'd like to thank the commissions for getting us to this point. We think that the text amendment as drafted shows the collaboration and compromise that both sides showed during this. We think this is a good fit for the town. We think this is a good fit for our client as well and for the business community generally. I'll keep my comments brief at the moment. We hope that the commission sees fit to approve the amendment.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for the applicants? We've gone through this. I mean, I guess I'll just briefly mention a few things since no one else is stepping up. And again, this was a collaborative effort on our part, as those of you remember. I'm not sure if Commissioner Herlinski and Lefakis were seated yet when we started this. But it was a collaborative effort from all of us and the applicant and staff. There was a lot of compromise. I think everyone remembers there was a lot of anguish over this and trying to limit it, but yet try to find a niche to be able to provide this service. We're expanding the side and rear yard outdoor storage in industrial zones by special permit only. There's a summary, so we kind of tighten that up a little bit. I think that at first, I'll be quite honest with you, I was not too enthusiastic about the change, but I do want to commend the commission for all of us trying to come to compromise to make this work so a majority of us, or at least can feel halfway decent about this particular change. And that's probably all I kind of want to say about that at this point. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to say? Commissioner Lefakis?
Yes. I just had an interest in tightening up the description in 6.30.2, item B3. So where it says all outdoor storage to be screened, I'd like to tighten it up so that it says screened from neighboring property. And also where it's capital letters, the third line down, again, screened in the rear yard, screened from neighboring property in the rear yard. Screened, anybody could play games with us by using the word screened. And I think if it specifically states screened from neighboring property, it's tighter.
Could you take a second, maybe reread the whole thing, how item 3, how you would like it? And please take your time.
Item 3, the commission shall require outdoor storage to be screened from neighboring property in the side yard and may require the outdoor storage to be screened from neighboring property in the rear yard.
Did everybody get that? Is any questions on that? Does the applicant have
I would just like to make clear, and I think the commission knows this, that this is in the industrial zone only. I think that the original language of from public view, and again, I think you guys understand, I'm looking at this very primarily through my client's eyes.
Yes, we're not.
Right, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And in our particular case, I think, I'll put it this way, I think from neighboring property adds a hard limitation that then the special permit process cannot work around because of the conditions of the particular site.
Staff would like to comment on that particular comment?
You know, originally it was from public view, and now it's really geared towards just having the side and the rear yard screened, just so in general it's screened. I don't think that it was really intended just for the neighboring property.
Right.
So, I don't know. Matt, you got any comments?
Yeah, a little bit. I wasn't here for the discussions. Maybe that's a good thing, actually. I can come in fresh with no preconceived ideas. I think the second part of that says may to the rear, right? So I suppose that would address your concern. So it's
For the rear, yes.
For the rear. Just in my general experience, the concern isn't really from like use to like use, as you can imagine. It's generally from industrial uses to incompatible uses or zones or districts. So if the rear yard or side yard were adjacent to a residential zone, for instance, and I think you have that addressed in the draft, no?
Residential buffers still would apply. All of the zoning buffers still apply regardless of the language.
Not necessarily the residential zone. We have a lot of residential properties that are zoned industrial. And I think that's what Commissioner LaFakis was talking about. You know, the people that own homes that happen to be zoned I-1 and I-2, they have to look at that.
Which, I mean, it's a good point, and it brings up probably a conversation that's a little bit too deep for tonight's purposes, but as a legislative matter, if you've zoned property for industrial uses, you've established basically a hierarchy that says that this is the community's preference for use of that land. If there are single-family homes that are within those locations, lawful, pre-existing, non-conforming, or otherwise, they actually take a lower status and are a little bit subordinate. So why would you screen a subordinate use from a principal?
Because some of those properties were there before it was industrial.
Again, probably too much conversation for tonight, but I would still maintain that when the decision was made to change them to industrial, unless there was some accommodation made for those uses in the zoning when you did that in some way, then you in essence made a decision to rezone those lands for industrial. So I'm not advocating one way or another because I understand both sides of it. But in my experience, the concern has generally been from district
from incompatible uses.
Districts at district boundaries.
Well, I think that the percentage that we're changing this to is so great that you have to put something in, that it would be good to put something in there to give some relief to the existing homeowner. And that's why I thought Mr. LaFakis, Commissioner LaFakis's suggestion was a valid one.
Oh, it's definitely valid. The other thing that just, and I'll, while I'm going off here, Lori and I talked briefly about, you have kind of a hierarchy of industrial districts. You have I-1, I-2, and then you have this IP. And this would apply to all of these.
Yes.
So Lori and I had this conversation about, and it's completely up to the commission, of course, but whether or not, if you do this and you apply this broadly to all three of those within the hierarchy, is there any real distinction between the IP and the I-2, at least in this regard? Now, this particular client has a certain user in a certain location and a site, which I understand is not in the IP. It's in a different industrial zone. But that's just something that I think you might want to think about, whether or not you really want to apply this to the IP or not.
The commission definitely had a conversation as to which industrial zone you wanted to include, and you did come to a consensus to say that you wanted it in all of them.
All of them, yes, we did.
So,
That was one of the compromises.
Yep.
Yes.
Which is good because that you had that, because now if you're doing your POCD and you're doing your update
Right.
and you're looking at regulation amendments down the road a little bit,
Right.
you can maybe revisit this concept of this hierarchy between I1, I2, and IP and see if that's actually even a valid, concept anymore. Just
Yeah.
a thought.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, and regarding just, adding the terminology from neighboring property, I'm not sure what else we would be screening it from. But like I said, it was supposed to be screened from public view, and you took that out. And so I think Commissioner Lefakis is just trying to clarify, a more detailed understanding. I don't think it's a bad thing to add it, but it does certainly. More words always complicate things
Yes.
when it comes to zoning regulations. So,
Well, Mr. Lefakis kind of made a suggestion or a motion to add this, but he can't unfortunately vote on this because he's an alternate.
Can he make a motion?
I believe, I don't know I don't motion, but he cannot vote on it.
Is it seconded?
It has not been seconded.
I'll second it.
So,
If he's not seated, he can't make a motion.
right. So would someone else like to make that motion on his behalf? Commissioner Helinski has made that motion to change this regulation that Commissioner Lefakis has stated. And I think
second
Commissioner Higley has seconded that motion to change our resolution to include that new language, which I'm not going to read again. Would anyone like to have that read again? Is everyone pretty clear?
May I ask a question?
Yes, sure, absolutely. We haven't closed public hearing.
Okay. Would that change require this to go back to CROG?
no.
Okay.
There's the answer, no.
May I make one more?
Absolutely, we haven't closed the public hearing.
I think I'm reiterating an earlier point, and I don't want to waste you guys' time through this. I would suggest, so Commissioner Higley, you brought up that we're asking that you expand the outdoor storage by a significant percentage, which I don't necessarily argue. Whether or not it's appropriate is, I think, where we might see differently. But I would suggest that the language that's being presented here would have applied now in the 20%. Even if somebody comes in with a special permit for 20%, we're going to be requiring them to screen from neighbors as well as
The 20% is already there, and it's
but it
already
will be
allowed.
stricken
Right.
and replaced with this. I'm saying that in the future, if someone were to come with just 20%, which is the current regulation,
They would come with the 50%, because it would be to their advantage.
that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I think that additional language, I think the general point that I'm making is additional language further hamstrings the commission from making decisions that are tailored to the specific site, the specifics of the site.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
I
Commissioner DeVray?
think I just want to be clear. What you're saying is anybody who comes before us for 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, all of this would apply. Is that what you're asking? I just want to be clear with that.
I believe so, through the special
Okay,
permit process, that
because
regardless of the request, if it is a
Up to-
shall.
Right, it's up to 50%.
That's correct.
So from 0 to 50%, anybody who comes before us with storage would have to have a buffer between the neighbors.
That's correct.
So it's not just 50%, and this is strictly for you. It's
That's
for
correct.
anybody. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Helinski?
Yeah, could you give us a clarification on why screening from the neighbors is significantly different from public view?
So, Commissioner, I would suggest that right now, I'd say actually quite clearly that right now, neither of those terms is in the regulation as amended. So I believe that you could read this as appropriately screened, rather than having one or the other.
Yeah, but that's kind of vague in my mind.
I admit that language clarifies. I would prefer language that doesn't limit, distinguishing between clarification and limiting.
Okay. I guess, in my opinion, I just don't see the change as a big deal.
Is your mic on, Ken?
Or a big restriction or whatever.
Mike, please.
Oh, it's on. I'm just not here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just don't see it as a big restriction to any company that's, doing this kind of effort in their area, personally.
Thank you. Commissioner Petronella?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not for the proposed change per Commissioner Lefakis. We have, as far as screening, required screening from industrial to industrial, what's the point? All of our applicants usually come in with some sort of side yard landscaping and so forth, but screening from industrial to residential, we have a buffer of I think it's 100 feet, and there's certain screening requirements that have to be met, landscaping requirements to screen that. So those are all applicable, and that stands. As far as an applicant may only require 10%, and then it gets restrictive because the way it's worded, it says the proposed language is be screened from neighboring property. Well, that's any neighbor. That's east, west, north, south. That screens everything. So that puts a lot of burden on the industrial user. And screen meaning what? To what standard? Who's going to make that up? Or there's nothing really proposed. We have, again, I think our screening is pretty specific as far as trees, buffers, whether it's canopy trees or whatever, but it's pretty specific of what needs to be done. So with that, I think what we have on the books right now, I think suffices. I don't see a need to really step this up to put in screening from industrial to industrial. I mean, outdoor storage, it could be a parking lot. I think we might be overthinking it, but again, I'm just going to state for the record that I am opposed to the proposed language. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hold our comments and hold the vote on this amendment so we can hear if any public would like to speak, since this is a public hearing, and then get back to this discussion? I won't close the public hearing on this. Is that fair to everyone, just in case there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this? Mm-hmm. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak for or against this text change?
Should I sit back?
Yeah, you have to, yeah. Is that okay, Commissioners? So we get some input from the public before we continue our discussion? Identify yourself for the record, please. And I think the mic's still on.
Okay. Lori Parker, 105 Cottage Road. This is a new one. I'm just concerned about the large increase in thinking about large buildings and large properties. Does that mean they can put 30% more stuff around these buildings? So, 20 plus. So, does that include like trucks and things, or what kind of things could be outdoor storage?
We can't be.
Okay, I know it said something about relative to what's going on inside the building, but if you have a building, say, with 180 truck bays and they want to put the body parts outside, I'm just thinking large buildings and large volume, this might be too much. So I'm going to read about this, but
yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm concerned that it might be too much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for or against this application, please?
Matt Schmidt, 1304 Bigelow Commons. Yeah, I agree that the size seems like a lot. And I'm just wondering what would this look like? Let's say a property everyone knows, 113 North Maple Street. What would that look like? I think you really need to take a look at that. And I understand the hierarchy that he was talking about, industrial to industrial, and that's great in a theoretical sense, but you have real homes there. So you really need to take that into account. So I think really when you have your discussion, think about that. What does that look like? That's a perfect example. What does that 50% storage look like on 113 North Maple? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speak for, against the applicant? Seeing none, applicant come back up. We haven't closed the public hearing yet. I think the only thing I'll mention again to everybody is that this is a special use permit. This is not a site plan review, so any change anyone wants to, they have to come in for a special use permit, which I think everybody knows, especially the people in the audience who've been here for a while know that we have a little more leeway with a special use permit than a site plan review. So that is one protection or caveat to this. And again, I just want to mention to everyone that we did do, we've been talking about this. Did this start in January or maybe February?
We submitted our narrative in December.
Yeah, so the commission has debated this. I know we have 2 new members since then. Numerous times to try to reach this compromise to try to accommodate, knowing that it's not just this particular applicant that this would be affecting. That's been part of the issue here as we've gone along this winter and spring. So I'll give it to Mike. Mr. Grillo wanted to, you were first before Commissioner Lefakis.
Thank you, appreciate it. I just wanted to say that I do 100% agree with Mr. Petronelli. We all agreed, we've been working on this hard. We finally came up with something. It's ready to go. Why change it? That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Lefakis, before you.
Yeah, Commissioner Petronella clarified something for me, and I've revised my thought because of what he said. When I was thinking this, I guess I didn't articulate it. Screened from neighboring property if the adjacent property is not industrially zoned. So if it's residential, then screen it. But industrial to industrial, I don't think
we
that's
already
necessary.
have the buffers in here. If we read down through, we have the buffers. So well, think about that for a minute. We'll get back to you on what you want to do.
Right.
Commissioner Majumdar.
Yes, I think we have worked quite hard from January onward on this regulation. I personally would like to have given more leeway to the industrial zone in their process of producing, making, storing items that they use in their process. So I'm in agreement with Commissioner Petronella that we don't need any additional language. There are buffer yard requirements that are already built into this regulation. Buffer B and D are either for residential across the street or abutting. So that's already there. So we already have a protection for the residential properties. In addition to that, do we need more? My answer is no.
So before we continue, is your motion, do you still want to keep your motion on for consideration of changing this text?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you. We withdraw your second automatically. Okay, so the motion has been withdrawn at this point. We're still doing some conversation. Do we still need the applicant at this point, or should we close the public hearing? I think we're all set with the applicant?
And move to close the public hearing.
There's a motion made to close the public hearing by Commissioner Higley, seconded by Commissioner DeGray to close the public hearing part of this. We can still continue our discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Show it was unanimous to close the public hearing. We're not conversing with you any longer, but you're free to stay where you were seated. We're continuing.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, conversation. Continue. Does staff have any additional comments or concerns at this point?
The only thing that as you were talking about that particular topic, which was discussed as part of the record, just draw your attention to 610.2 A and B, which is in Article 6, which speaks to the industrial zones. And it basically is pretty rigorous language about addressing the interface between industrial and residential districts as well. The 150-foot, a buffer strip of 100 foot in width, meeting certain standards, and et cetera. So I just wanted to make note of that. But it does, it does not address an existing single-family home that is embedded within an industrial district that may be adjacent to, which you could probably deal with as part of the special permit process if someone wanted to do it. So.
That's what I was just going to say, that not to be argumentative, but the buffers, when they say residential, they mean like R33, R44, R88, and the houses that are sitting in industrial are zoned industrial, even though people live in them. So you cannot apply the 100-foot buffer. You could if it was a special use permit and you chose, but you can't go to the zoning regulations and say, we have a 100-foot buffer, so we're golden. That's not how you can do it. You can change the regulations, but until you do, you have to live with what they say.
But this is a special use permit.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just, in fact, if you have a residential house that is being used as a residence in an industrial zone, it's a non-conforming use. They could still actually develop the rest of the property with industrial uses.
Right.
So, and that occurs in every town.
Yes, yeah. Yep. Commissioner Petronella?
Yeah, I just want to state, for some of the residents who spoke, that this does not in any way increase the area of development for the impervious coverage ratios, because right now I think for industrial it's 66%. So this doesn't increase that in any way. It still conforms with that building and pavement, and if it's even if it's gravel storage, I guess as well. But that would all be inclusive in there. So there still cannot develop more than that percentage. This is not to infringe or to add upon it. It doesn't allow that, is what I'm trying to say. I just want to make that comment so that everybody understands that as well, to the public and the people who spoke as well. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good information. Thank you very much for expanding on that. Any other comments? Good.
Just one more comment to that effect is that this does not include loading or trucks parking or any other parking. This is for product only.
Yeah, product only. Yes, absolutely. And we debated that way back, a few months back. Okay. Any other questions? Any other concerns? Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve PH number 3040 ZA application of Connecticut Mulch Distributors for a text amendment to section 6.30.2B to allow limited storage or outdoor storage in industrial zones.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by the Secretary to approve, second by Commissioner Higley. Any final discussion on this?
Sorry, I had included a sheet for you guys to make reference to how this meets POCD or anything of that nature. So economic development or
Is that the sheet that has 8-2 and 8-?
Yeah.
Would you like us to include that in the record? Or?
It's just you should make a finding that this is meeting the plan of conservation and development and setting the effective date as well.
Would you mind doing that, Mr. Secretary?
I'm sorry.
With 8-2, if you don't mind reading 8-2.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily want you to read that. I want you to make a finding how this can meet the plan of conservation and development. For instance, it helps the economic development in the industrial district or things of that nature.
Absolutely.
With regard to the motion to approve PH 3040, we find that that the motion conforms with the findings of the Plan of Community Development as proposed by the town of Enfield.
In addition, it expands our economic development strategy.
And in addition, expands our economic development strategy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Commissioner Helinski. So a motion made to approve by Secretary with the final caveats, seconded by Commissioner Helinski. Is there any final discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call vote. Mr. Secretary, whenever you're ready.
Lou Fiore?
4.
Linda DeGray?
4.
Virginia Higley?
Against.
Francis Alaimo?
4.
Kiran Majmudar?
4.
Ken Helinski?
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Do you have to give a reason for against?
No.
No, okay. Let us show there was 6 for and 1 against.
Can you please set an effective date?
Typically what will happen is the legal notice will go in, the notice of action, generally the next day. And then there's a 15-day appeal period from the publication. So the effective date is typically set at least a couple of weeks out from tonight. And if there's a date that makes sense, June 15, that kind of thing, you can set the effective date for whenever you want to set.
Sure, why don't we do 30 days out from today? Is that 30 days out from today?
You could do 30. It could be less than 30.
Make it 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
The appeal period's 2 weeks, so.
So make it the 27th.
May 26th.
May 26th.
Effective May 26th.
May 26th. Thank you, I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you for the reminder and the suggestion. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, guys. Been a long road. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
We'll see you next time. All right, get back to my agenda here.
On to the next table.
Yep, moving on to item E, PH 3034MA. We're going to leave on the table, so no motion needs to be made. This is going to stay on the table because the applicant is not ready to come in front of us yet. Still working with East Windsor. Now we're moving on to old public hearings. XZA 3040. Would Secretary please open the hearing?
The public hearing is already open.
Already open, so that's right, we don't have to open it again, yes.
Reopen the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
There's a motion made to close public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Helinski. Motion made by Commissioner Higley, seconded by Commissioner Helinski to close the public hearing. Discussion, seeing that, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let us show is unanimous, the public hearing is closed. So now we'll go on to,
Don't we have to vote for it?
we just did.
Oh, no, we voted to close the, we haven't voted on it.
Oh, yeah, we haven't, we're getting there.
Motion to approve.
I'm not there yet. Thank you very much, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for having to go through that extra step. As you all know, I apologize to each one of you personally about what happened the last meeting, not closing the public hearing correctly. That's on me. So again, thank you for doing that tonight. We are the applicant. Does the staff have any questions or comments remaining?
I just want to comment that I had added the amendments that had been voted on to the regulations tonight. So that was,
Yes.
we did one correction in GD, Article 123, it was actually Article 8124, and then we added under EC, number 4, land trusts and private open space.
Yes. Everybody sees that? We got from last time? And the other thing that I will mention that has come to our attention, that yes, the state did, I don't want to say change or enhance or whatever you want to call it, the part of the regulations for cannabis. Staff has had a chance to review that. The staff does not feel that has any effect on our proposal for tonight. Having said that, as you know, we can go back and change these at any time if the state does change a lot. We do feel becomes a negative impact to us. This is by special use permit, so we also have that caveat also. So again, that we can go forward because, who knows what the state might do 6 months from now when they're back in session. So we need to take that in consideration, but it shouldn't stop us tonight. It should have no impact for what we're proposing. So seeing that, is there any other comments from the commission?
Just on that change.
Yep.
Was it basically lifting or taking away the lottery process?
I don't believe so, but there's a lot.
I seen an email.
But there is a lot of some confusion over exactly. That's why we're saying at this point that it has no impact.
So,
An
so
email
this
today
is,
between-
this is,
yeah.
you really
Can you
shouldn't be
comment on
talking
that?
about this for the public hearing. You could talk about it as a discussion item added on, but.
Yeah, we already closed public hearing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought we were
Yeah.
discussing
No, this is
motion.
among ourselves.
Yeah,
So
oh, yeah.
as far as we know, no.
Okay, because I did see the email between Lori and the manager. That's what I understood, that
Yep.
they lifted that lottery process and didn't use, like we have for the package stores, we have per capita. Like we have 18 permits in Enfield.
Yep. Again,
So
that's
by the
just-
population.
Again, that's the state has really no bearing on us as of today.
Right.
That would be.
So
We're just going to move
I know
forward.
we were looking at that lottery piece.
We're going to move forward, and if we have to change something going down the road, we will do that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt the recreational cannabis regulations as modified to allow the sale and cultivation of recreational marijuana in accordance with the regulations prepared, dated March 25th, 2022, modified May 12th, 2022, titled Proposed Recreational Marijuana Regulations for Enfield, Connecticut, inclusive of Articles A through H.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Motion made by the secretary, seconded by Commissioner Helinski. Final, no discussions, so we can have a roll call vote, please.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Secretary.
Lou Fiore.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Virginia Higley.
4.
Francis Salimo.
Against?
Kiran Majmudar.
4.
Kenneth Helinski.
4.
And John Petronellis, 4.
Thank you. Let the record show that it was 6-4 and 1 against. Seeing that, we'll move on to other business.
Excuse me, same thing, text amendment, if you could, your findings.
We're finding that it's in compliance with our plan of conservation development, and for certain, this is part of our overall economic development plan for the town of Enfield, Connecticut.
And effective date. Set
An effective date 2 weeks from today.
Boom, done.
Effective date, can we do tomorrow? No, I know, I'm just. Let's staff catch up for a minute before we move on to 11. Staff kind of all caught up a little bit? We did old business.
New business.
We moved new business up.
Oh, so it's,
Oh.
never mind. Administrative approval.
Yeah, forgot the administrative approval. I forgot the administrative approval.
That's okay, I'm a good nag.
Are you looking for us?
Administrative approval. SPR 1890.
So basically. I'm sorry. So this is basically a bank that's going to go into a personal service. So we really didn't feel that there was much change in parking or anything of that nature, so.
Right.
And this is at 662 Enfield Street.
And this is just informational for us. Business, item 11. Discussion on size limits for warehouse distribution centers, or no matter where that leads, this discussion could lead to a moratorium or could not. I guess I'll start off the conversation somewhat because I am interested in everyone's comments on this. As you know, there's been some discussion around town. I'm sure a lot of us have been approached, and we've discussed some of it about whether we would like to make some changes to some of our regulations to tighten up the procedures for larger buildings. And notice I'm not going to emphasize warehouse here. I'm just come and see where this goes, to, for instance, special use permit, what's the size, what's the square footage, do we want to put limitations on that for a special use permit? Why would we want to do that? Do we need a moratorium to be able to do that? Or can we just do a text change without the moratorium? So I'm throwing out a bunch of stuff here to start the conversation. So I don't want to dominate this conversation at this point. So I'm interested in everyone's comments here on this. That's why it's on the agenda. So whoever would like to start speaking first, Commissioner Higley.
I'd like to see a moratorium so that we can see perhaps how other towns have handled it, if there's a good starting point. In other words, the square footage of the building, what constitutes the need to have a stricter, like a public hearing versus a site plan review. Should they all be public hearings, or should just say over like 50,000 square feet or 500,000 square feet should be public hearings? And that's why I think we should have a moratorium, so we can nail it all down to see if we even have to nail it down, and see if there's anything we want to change. And it would be a good time to do it because we're going to be looking at the zoning regs soon.
Okay. So it sounds like Commissioner Higley would like to have a moratorium, and while that moratorium's on for whatever length, work on the new regulations, or if there is any changes, work on the regulations. All right, so that's one thing. Anyone else like to? Commissioner DeGray?
I think it's kind of hard to say, no, a business can't come here. That's basically, saying, no, you can't come here. You can only have this size. I think that's an issue, because then it stops economic development in the town. But I also think we need some kind of assurances from the state to repair these roads, because most of these bigger developments that have been happening are on state highways, 220, 190, and they're all state roads. And we need to get some kind of assurance from the state that we're going to increase traffic to allow this to not only help the town, but also to help the state. We need them to say, hey, we'll give you some money to fix those roads. We also need to look at what kind of impact good, especially our state roads. So
may I? Because I'm trying to gauge where we're going to go.
Yeah.
So if I can respond to you about the roads. And I'm sure Commissioner Helinski is probably smiling at me too, and I'm sure Commissioner Fakis, who's been in, could tell you also. You're absolutely right. That is the state on 190 and 220. And CROG, okay, because that's our capital region for transportation. All projects have to go in front end for, I can talk about this for hours because I've been there. So basically what happens in the town of Enfield is we're kind of on our own. You can't count on the state doing it. Let me give you an example. When I was back in a different position, CROG did a study on 190 and 220 because they recognized 20 years ago that traffic was going to be a problem in the town of Enfield, not just from our development, but also what was going on in Summers and Stafford Springs. So they did a study, a comprehensive study, and we appreciated that. And they came back and they said, okay, here's our recommendations. We're going to retime the lights. We're going to make we want you to eliminate a lot of the curb cuts on 220, 190. We're going to time the lights. And that was pretty much basic, and a few turnoffs, a few double lanes here and there, and that was basically it. So I don't mean to burst your bubble. I don't mean that at all. But to wait for the state to come back to us, and we can certainly make that request to CROG. Yeah. We can make that request to our state representatives who might be able to have some influence with DOT, Connecticut DOT. But I can assure you that the response is going to be minimal.
it's going to be very slow.
So I guess my question is, I'm just trying to gauge where we want to go. Sounds like you're interested in taking a look at the regulations, possibly doing some text changes for larger buildings.
We may, yeah.
Okay, are you interested in doing that without a moratorium or with a moratorium?
Without a moratorium. And then
Okay.
for a later conversation, have you heard back from the Elm Street corridor study yet? Where we're at, but that's for later when I have commissioner correspondence. Just ask it. Just,
You're talking about the CROG study?
yeah. All right, thanks.
Commissioner Limo, then Commissioner Grillo, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep.
Looking at, okay, if we have a piece of industrial land and it's able to fit a building on it, or I don't see why we should stop that. If that land is for that, these developers are buying it for that. We put it like that. Change it to residential then if you don't want to build in there. I'm just saying if it's zoned, I'm happy with what we have here. It has to come before us and we decide if it fits, it doesn't. But if it's zoned for that, why are we stopping them?
Well, first of all, I'll make this caveat. No one wants to stop anything.
but
not stop anything. I think what people were leaning towards, and I want to emphasize that, no one here is looking or is being influenced by anyone to stop anything. What's been asked of us is to look at possibly to make sure that some of these larger buildings, and again, I'm not emphasizing warehouses, larger buildings are done through a special use permit, which allows us much more flexibility to make some things happen without having to agree with the applicant. As you know, a site plan review, if they don't agree, it doesn't get done, basically. So no one's looking to stop anything. We're looking to have more input and more control over the situation, possibly from a traffic standpoint, a noise standpoint, a safety standpoint, downstream flooding standpoint. I will share with you, for those of you who have been part of POCD, like Karan and I, is that clearly in the POCD, right now, at least in the draft versions, we are identified as a floodplain zone, without a doubt, and I've known that for a long time. Right, so we, again, all we're looking to do possibly is to buffer this up so that we're doing special use permits on some of these larger buildings instead of site plan. So the question really is, would you like to do that, or at least discuss that? And if you do, yes or no. And if you don't, or if you do, would you like to do that and put a moratorium while we're discussing that, or just start going through a text change to do that? So that's really what that's really fundamentally what the conversation is.
I guess I'm kind of torn on, because I definitely don't want to limit anybody, okay? I've always looked at it as, myself, I don't want a big building next to my house. That's why I didn't buy next to an industrial land, or I didn't buy, and that's the way I'm looking at it. We have plenty of residents, we have that. Yeah, they're large buildings, but I thought we already went through this with them. We made sure they did the buffers, and I thought we pretty much laid down what we wanted to see, and I thought we got most of that, didn't we?
Well, again, we had an agreeable applicant. We had an agreeable applicant. You might not always have an agreeable applicant.
Understandable. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for your input. Commissioner Lima was next.
Yeah, so I'd like to dovetail off what Commissioner Higley was saying. And Lori, the dates are PLCD, and we're looking at our regulations. I think it's this calendar year, correct? Lori, we're going to be done with the PLCD and our review of the regulations this calendar year.
Right, the POCD,
So
which is
we had some
guidance
delays because of
document.
COVID. So what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, is let's just leave it alone. We're going to be doing our regulations and our PLCD in the next 6 to 8 months, and let's look at it then, and just fix the take a big look.
During the regulation review?
Yeah, we're going to be redoing our whole zoning regulation, and there's places like in the industrial park, hopefully someday, we can just keep it as it is. That's where it belongs. But we need to do a good job on the PLCD and our new regulations, take everything we just learned over the last couple of years here and address it, and address what you're talking about tonight. Because why reinvent the wheel? We're going to be doing the whole thing over again anyway.
So when are we looking at the regulation review, Lori? Are we going to be able to get that done this calendar year?
As I said, the POCD is a guidance document for us
That's
to.
September. We're looking at
so
September.
we should be.
So regulations after that, so we're looking at January of 2023 at the earliest?
Maybe before then.
I thought we set a goal for by the end of this calendar year initially.
Yeah, that's a goal. Yep.
But, we don't meet in August. I don't know if we should go through this whole big motion right now and procedure to do this and just address it then.
Okay.
And I
All
think
right.
we'll do a good job at it. We'll have the whole regulation open.
Okay.
I mean, that's my thought.
Okay. I'm kind of keeping, I don't mean to be keeping score, but I got to keep track of this, so.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Helinski? Commissioner Helinski?
Yeah, I think the problem of large buildings in town is a serious one for the town at this point. And I think we need to, I think there's some urgency here to go ahead and review specifically rules for large buildings so that we can determine if we want to change those regulations, add the special use permit requirement for those, because, I mean, they tend to pop up and you know, to your point, Commissioner Grillo, some people don't realize they bought next to industrial land, you know, and all of a sudden there's a 40-foot wall, you know. So granted, it's on them. They should have known it was industrial land, but people may not be thinking all about that far ahead when they're buying a house in a nice area. So I think we have some urgency to go ahead and review those specific areas of the large regulations and a special use permit, and whether we want one for the large buildings specifically, and we can define whatever that is as far as large, because it seems to be becoming a critical image not only in our town but in other towns.
Thank you. So would you be in favor?
I'd be in favor of a moratorium
And a text change.
and a change. Text
Okay.
change.
Commissioner Mazunar?
Yeah, hi. It has been a difficult process as far as the large industrial buildings are concerned. I'm not in favor of moratorium just because, to me, it seems and feels like a knee-jerk reaction. So that's number one. Number two, what Commissioner Grillo said is it's an infringement on the landowner's rights. I bought the land, it's industrial. It's my right to develop it the way current regulations read. All right, now, given that, to somehow socially make a compromise is a little difficult to sit in my mind that I've already bought my land, I've already paid for it, and this is what I want to do with it. And all of a sudden somebody says, no, you can't do that. It makes it very difficult. So I do feel there may be, there's the need to put some more by right development language into special use permit type language. That's fine. However, my right to develop X square feet should not be compromised. That's number one. I would like to know in town how many we have such industrial sites that can permit there's hundreds of thousands of square feet of development in the industrial zone. If that's a very small number, are we spinning our wheels? If it's a large number, yes, we do need to think about it seriously. But that's all I got to say right now.
So I can I'm trying to keep track. Sounds to me like, at least in your mind, you'd be willing to look at possibly a text change, but certainly not a moratorium.
Exactly.
Okay. Commissioner Petronella?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am opposed to the consideration of a moratorium myself, and I think Commissioner Limo brought up some good points too. I think let's not try to overreact immediately. We have this coming up with the POCD and the regulations and so forth. We can certainly discuss that then. I go back to the 1980s when this commission at the time, knee-jerk reaction of development that was going crazy throughout the town, put a moratorium on condos, apartments, and so forth. And it still pretty much exists. And it's what, 30 some odd years later. But Yeah, it's a knee-jerk reaction, I think. There's nothing proposed, I don't think, coming in that we know of right now. Lori, is that true, that anything big?
That is correct.
Yeah, looking at something, or the possibility of a regulation change, we can certainly discuss that, talk about that, whether it's a square footage or things like that. It's ironic, but you got one of the biggest buildings in town that's empty, which is the mall. Everybody wants it filled. The residents want it filled. This commission wants to know what's going on and so forth, but nobody has an issue with that as far as, that. So I don't understand. And the industrial buildings bring in a lot of revenue, a lot of tax revenue. And if the town would better allocate that income, that revenue, towards road improvements, which they should, instead of allocating it towards everything but road improvements, maybe we wouldn't be having this discussion. But that's a discussion for another commission, not ours. So, thank you.
So to sum up, you're definitely not for a more, but you be open to possibly start looking at the tax change.
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Lefakis, I think you're the last one up. Would you have anything like to add?
I'm open to text change, and earlier I could have supported a moratorium, but I've heard some good arguments against it from the rest of the commission. So I think our primary focus should be text change.
Okay. So let me sum up. It looks to me at this point is that 3 commissioners are for moratorium, and I'm actually not going to count the alternates so much on this particular one because you couldn't vote anyways on this. 4 commissioners are not for a moratorium, so we will not be proceeding with a moratorium. Okay, there's no sense having a roll call vote or anything of that nature. There's no sense that's the way it looks. But it does look like, and I will count the alternates in this case, it does look like 9 of us, 8 of us are for, because I know Chris, if you don't mind speaking on behalf of Chris D'Antonio, he did express to me his commitment to explore the text change and not wait for the regulations. I know that we had 2 commissioners here that wanted us to wait, but it seems to me that we have 8 of us that would like to at least keep going, at least explore the text change to that. So having said that, I think that's probably a good place to start tonight and leave that instead of start talking about the text change. Because I think what staff really would like to know is some particulars, so please start thinking about particulars. The text change, why you would want to do the text change. I think I mentioned a couple things before, why we want to do it. That's just my opinion. You guys have your own, and I want to hear them. And also the size of the building that you think you might want to have that pertain to. One of the examples, and I really don't know, the amount of footage that's the ones on, do you remember the amount of square feet on the one on North Maple Street?
It's about 500,000.
So that's, but do you want to go smaller than that? Would you like to go larger than that? Again, not for tonight, this is just food for you guys to think about, and we could pick this back up next meeting.
North Maple, the Win Stanley building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
819,000.
Yeah.
To that one?
Cottage Road.
Yeah, on Bacon.
Bacon, same thing.
No, the Bacon is 800. No. 113 North Maple is 500. Pretty sure.
Well, anyways, so again, please start thinking about, where our size, starting point is. And again, we're not looking to start this tonight. This is food for thought, and we'll pick this back up next meeting. Maybe not even if we have a large agenda next meeting also, but maybe we can, but at least keep this in the back of your mind so we can at least keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a plan with everyone? Does that sound reasonable to staff also? Enough for us to at least get started a little bit?
Certainly.
Some kind of how many parcels are affected?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
We could at least do that study.
Yeah. Okay, all right. We'll leave this on the agenda, please, for next meeting. At least we'll start getting started on that. Conversation was very good. Thank you all for participating. Correspondence. Any correspondence to be shared with? No. Just looking down the aisle. No. Commissioners' correspondence. Commissioner DeGray?
Through the chair
Yep.
to staff. Two things. Could we get an update on the contaminated sites that are still here in town? Because when we do these applications, we kind of need to know a little bit. And the second one is the Elm Street corridor CROG study. How's that going, if you've heard back? That's all.
I think that they've just finished up their draft proposal, so I believe that came in like last week or the week before, so I'll forward all of that to the PCC. I was going to say the POCD. Too many acronyms. So, yeah. But,
Thank you.
Could you quickly just brief us? I'm unfamiliar with that particular study.
So it's a traffic study for Elm and basically the main roads around the mall.
Okay.
And they're doing actual, studies of uses that could go there. We had a visual
survey.
preference survey that went out.
Yep.
So.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about now. Thank you. Anybody, anything else? Director of Planning report?
I just gave one. we were short-staffed last week because the two ladies were out at Casio Trading, and one of them is sick this week with COVID because apparently there was a outbreak there. So we've been short-staffed for a couple weeks. So
yes, you have.
Trying to stay afloat, and luckily Matt's here.
And I'll add to it. I've put an extra burden on the staff because as you guys know, one of my other jobs is registrar of voters, and I've had to borrow Georgie to help me create my GIS maps for that. So, unfortunately, that's been taking up some time also in the office. And I thank you.
That's okay. We're glad to be able to help other
I'm really
departments.
so appreciative. I mean that sincerely. Couldn't be lost without that help. Applications to be received.
SBR 1891, application of Sean Mayo and owner Anderson Properties LLC for approval of a fabrication facility for car and window wraps at 9 Moody Road, Unit 3A, in the I-1 zone. And SPR 1892 is application of Walter Labonte, I think is how he pronounces it, requesting approval for an indoor long-term parking facility at 53 Manning, also in the I-1 zone. And public hearing 3041 is application of David Weeks of Kelly Fredette Lumber and the town of Enfield for a special permit for environmental remediation and conversion to open storage at 92 Prospect Street. So that's our brownfield that we've been working with Kelly Fredette since I've been here almost 4 years. We've been working on this. So it's long term coming. SPR 1893, 1706 King, and that's true storage. So this is this would be after the property is rezoned to industrial, which we got tabled tonight. So.
Oh, okay. So that's all right. Okay.
So that would be the site plan approval for that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Opportunities and unresolved issues.
I wish.
One of the things I would just like to mention, just for your consideration as your chairman, and I'm going to point to my friend, Commissioner Helinski, who's been in the same position as I am. For me, it's been very foreign to be able to, when I do the agenda, we do the call of order and pledge of allegiance, we do the fire evacuation announcement, we do the roll call, we approve the minutes, sometimes we have a special guest like the town manager, we do the town attorney report, and then we have public participation. And then we jump right into new public hearings without being able for the commission to comment on anything until the end of the meeting. And in addition to that, we don't really have a spot to be, we don't really have a convenient spot in our agenda, in my opinion, having done this for years, where we can change the agenda. You know how I had to do it tonight, just by asking you to do it as second part of approval of minutes, which is really not appropriate per se, and we can do that, right? I mean, I'm looking at Ken. You've been in this position, so just for your consideration, I almost would like to make a suggestion that we go back and amend our planning zoning rules, bylaws, so that maybe commissioners' correspondence or something like that is always after approval of minutes, or excuse me, after public participation. So this way, if we wanted to be able to respond back to the public, if they had brought up a question in an appropriate way, that was anything on our agenda, and at the same time, that would be a good spot where we could change the agenda accordingly for most things if we wanted to move things around, instead of trying a spot to slide it in, which we do, which is appropriate, which you can do with Robert Rules of Order, you certainly can do it, but it's not clean. So again, I just wanted to know if I had your approval to at least explore that with staff to change our agenda accordingly. Does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Excellent idea.
Okay, so I'll talk with Lori and Matt about that next week, and maybe we'll have a resolution to our bylaws to do this. See if someone has a problem with that, please bring it up, and we won't do it. So, I thought that was an enhancement, make things run a little smoother, maybe, and then give us a chance to respond back to the public sometimes if it's appropriate. Okay, thank you very much for that understanding. Thank you. Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Higley, seconded by Commissioner DeGray to adjourn. Let the record show we're adjourning at 8:56.